But there will be those, Dr. Tharoor, who say the Congress has no moral right to talk about censorship. This was the same BBC that was chased away by Indira Gandhi in the 1970s. This was the party that imposed emergency. And the BJP will in any case say, look, we've been winning every election in Gujarat and in the last few elections nationally. So forget about Gujarat. It's a closed chapter.
So look, first of all, whataboutery is a rather specious form of argument. The fact that one party did something that has been widely discredited does not justify another party, when they're in power, equally doing something that will be widely discredited even while they're doing it, and certainly by future journalists and historians. So I don't think that this kind of whataboutery serves any useful purpose, number one. Number two, speaking for myself, I'm not a Congress spokesman. I was not pretending to speak for the Congress party. I was speaking for myself. And on the very issues that you've just mentioned, my stand at the time and in my subsequent writings was critical of all those events. And therefore, I certainly have nothing to apologize for. I have never defended censorship, whether it's conducted by my party or by anybody else. I just don't think it's a good idea. I also think it's productive.
But wearing you don't think it's a good idea, but wearing your diplomat's hat, do you think in a year when India holds G20 presidency, that censorship will hurt India's image, that this attempt to ban the screening will hurt India's image, particularly in world capitals?
Yeah, this has been extremely unfortunate for the image of India internationally, starting with the UK, obviously, but also because others will report what has happened in their media, also across the democratic world. The fact may be that government agencies value the professional governmental relationship with India to an extent that they would perhaps try and dismiss this controversy. But I'm afraid public opinion in these countries will see the Indian government as having censored a documentary, and therefore will assume there was culpability, as suggested in the documentary, will pay more heed to the negative analysis of the Indian government's stand and position. And in all, it will basically be a net negative for the government of India. I had suggested in an earlier interview to someone else that the best reaction would actually have been to dismiss it, saying that everyone's entitled to their views, but as far as we're concerned, we're not paying attention to this documentary very much. Next question, or words to that effect, because that would have at least, by being dismissive, taken the government out of the firing line. By reacting in the manner they did, very thin-skinned way, by then going so far as to have it removed, having links removed from Twitter and other social media, by having specific tweets by Indians who had retweeted these links deleted, and then actually banning the film and censoring attempts to screen it, they have actually cast doubt on their commitment to the values of our Constitution and to their own claims that they are the quote-unquote mother of democracy. This is a phrase that Mr. Modi has used internationally. The mother of democracy does not stifle one of her own children, namely freedom of speech. So I think this was an own goal in many ways that the government has inflicted upon itself. And as an Indian, I do regret that they have done this. As somebody on the opposite side of the political fence, I might want to relish the discomfiture that they are facing internationally. But as an Indian, I do wish they hadn't put themselves in such a position, because I'd like to see India respected. Let me add one more thought, Rajdeep, which is that I thought that the reasons given by the government for the banning were particularly unfortunate. To say that this documentary threatens India's sovereignty and that screening it would affect India's national security and public order was a frankly pathetic excuse. Our sovereignty is not so fragile that it can be threatened by a documentary being shown in a foreign country, nor is our national security so weak that it is threatened by a BBC film. I just think using these arguments was unworthy of a mighty country like India, with all its strength, its institutions, its armies, its capacity to stand up for itself. And I hope that the people in the government who have been using these arguments will think hard about what they're conveying about India. They should be saying that we are not bothered about this. we are a sovereign state. No one can threaten our sovereignty, least of all a public sector broadcaster in a foreign country. That would have been a far more mature step than the one